Hello game makers, this is GameMaker Rob, and in this episode of our RPG starter kit we will be covering NPCs. We'll have villagers walking around, we'll have a collision system so that we can't walk into them and they can't walk into us. We'll have text so that villagers keep saying the same thing, and we will even allow one of them to give us money, and it will only happen one time no matter how many times we speak to them. So let's get started. Okay guys, so if you remember from last time, we had a decent battle system, but some of the spells weren't finished. The spells were exit and return. Exit should be pretty straightforward. We're just going to change a global variable every time you enter a room, and if that variable is true, then the exit spell is going to work. We're not going to do that right now though. We're actually going to try and get the structure in place for the return spell to work. For that to work, we're going to need innkeepers, and to have innkeepers we need to have NPCs, and if we want NPCs to be able to walk around, then we're going to need to change our movement system a little bit. All we're going to do is we're going to have a collision grid in every room, which is going to be created in the create event. So in the creation code of your rooms where the player is going to be, we want this instance create depth 000 obj collision. It doesn't matter where you place it, because it's just going to basically store an array, and wherever the NPCs and player is and any collision tiles, that area of the room is going to be set to 1. So go back into the room for a minute. So if we just hide everything apart from the collision grid, the collision layer, sorry. So all these tiles are going to be set to 1 on the grid, and then wherever the player is, that's going to be set to 1 too, and wherever we put NPCs, and all we're going to do is when we check to move, if the square we want to move to is set to 1, then we can't move there. And when the player moves, the tile where he was is going to be set to 0, and the tile where he's moving to is going to be set to 1. Hopefully that's going to stop people walking into each other. In the testing I've done so far, it's worked okay, but there's always things that seem to crop up that need changes. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we're going to create a new object. I'm going to call it obj collision, like that. Yeah, that's right. Just move it up here. And in the create event of our new object, we're going to put this code here. So first of all, this is going to get worked out for every room that the collision object is put in. So it's going to grab how many horizontal cells and how many vertical cells there are. Basically the number of tiles going to the right and the number of tiles going down. So it doesn't matter what size your rooms are, it's going to work it out automatically. Then we need to get the layer ID and the map ID, and this for loop, well, it's 2 sets of for loops. All we're doing is we're starting from the top left, and then we're going across checking each tile on the collision layer. This variable here gets the actual tile index, and if it's greater than 0, so if there's something there on the collision layer, we're setting that square to 1, as I said before. Otherwise, if there's nothing on the collision layer, the tile is going to get set to 0 in the grid. It's actually an array, but I'm calling it a collision grid just to confuse you. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add any NPCs that we've put down, which we haven't created any yet. We'll do that in a minute. So like I said, any NPCs that have been placed on the map will get added to the grid, and wherever the player is, he's going to get added to the grid also. So now that we've done that, because we're trying to reference the NPC object and also some variables inside the object, we're going to make that object now. So new object obj NPC, lowercase I think, isn't it? Yeah. And in the create event, we want this grid X and grid Y like that, and we're going to give it a sprite, NPCs, villager, and we want stationary down. That'll do. Okay, cool. So just want to check that I've got the name right. That's fine. And now we can actually put some villagers into the room. I'm going to put them on the player layer. So I think I'll have one there, one here. This guy is going to be an innkeeper. I have a few more over there. They're not going to do much for now. They're just going to kind of stand there. We're going to get the player moving around first of all to make sure that you can't walk through NPCs, and then we shall go from there. Okay, so now we're going to change the player movement code. There's not a lot, don't worry. Where we're going to change is, previously this bit of code was being used to check whether there was a collision or not. We're just going to put this code in there instead. So if can move is false, check that we have a collision object. If we don't have a collision object, then show a message. That means you've messed up somewhere. This is the same as before. This is different. So just checking if the target cell is 0. If it is 0, then we're going to move there. So we're going to block it so nobody else can go there. And we're going to unblock our current tile. If it is blocked, then we're just going to stop the player from moving in the first place. And that's it. And there's one more thing we need to do. Underneath, if disabled equals false, we're going to say if can move equals true. Kind of makes some of the rest of the what's the word? I don't know. It kind of makes this redundant, but we're still going to keep it because we're noobs. And that's how we roll. And the closing bracket's going to be under there. So all of this stuff, checking for movement, checking for out of bounds, and checking if the tile we can move to is inside of this. And after that, we're going to allow the player to move if he can. So now let's run the game and test it. Everything that blocked us before should now block us, and also NPCs. Just make sure that you can't walk into them. You should do what I call the Spaz Test, like press every button you can, wild fashion. And if your movement code still works, then you are onto a winner. Okay, so now we're going to make the NPCs move around, but we also need to get some groundwork done for sprites as well. So just to kind of show you what sprites I've got in the first place. For the villager, it's the same as the player. Stationary up, down, left and right, and then walk down, left and right. The innkeeper, I don't want him to move around, so I just have one sprite with the directions in them. The order of these sprites is important because we're going to use a variable called facing later on, and north is going to be 0, east is going to be 1, south is going to be 2, and west is going to be 3. So the image index of the sprite has to match that. That's why it's in this order. So let us go into obj init, our favorite friend, and we're going to add a new region called NPCs, this one here. And inside we have lots of things for you to type down. So 3 new enumerators. This one is the one that I was telling you about. We've got north, east, south and west. We're going to use it for a few different things. NPC types, so villager, shopkeeper and innkeeper for now. What this is going to do mainly is to set sprites, and also it might be used for the shopkeeper as well. I haven't decided yet. It's just to kind of define what type of NPC it is. It doesn't do much more than set sprites for now, though, at the moment. IDs, so I would assume you have more than one village and one town, that kind of thing. When we come to doing the talking, which we'll try and fit in this episode, the text that the NPC is going to use is based on their NPC ID. So the more characters you want, the more difference in what they say you want, the more entries you're going to want to have here. And we're also going to set up some sprites. So it's fairly self-explanatory. Apart from this bit, shop counter. So for the innkeeper and the shopkeeper, I'm going to have them display as a shop counter, and then they're just going to draw a sprite based on the facing that they need to, which is what this is going to be used for as well. You'll understand better when we come to it. And that's all you'll need in the init event for now. If we go into NPC Create Event, we've got these new variables. Walks around, so do we want the NPC to walk around or not? Default is set to false. You might want it to be set to true if most of your NPCs do want to walk around, but I've just set mine to false. Can move, same kind of thing as the player. The default type is going to be villager. Default NPC ID is 0, which is again the village 1 villager. Facing, so default is 0, which is north. We only really need that for shopkeepers and innkeepers, I think. Do we? No, actually, we're going to use it for villagers as well. Whenever the player talks to someone, we're going to make the NPC face the player. So that's what we need this for as well. Talking is whether the NPC is talking to the player or not. In cost, how much is it going to cost to stay at the inn? We're not going to use all of these straight away, but I figured we might as well just get them down now rather than having to mess about later on. Target X and Y, same as the player. Step speed, same as the player, although this is going to be randomly between 0.25, 0.5 or 1. When you're doing random speeds, try and make them divisible by 1 or 2, whatever your standard speed is, just so they end up at the right place. So if your grid size is 16, the step speed has to be able to divide into that. 2 is as fast as I like to go for my FPS of 30, so that's why I have the speeds like this. Wait timer. I don't want the NPCs to move all the time. I want them to move, pause for a bit, and then move again. I also want the pauses to be a random amount of time. So I don't want all the NPCs to, move, pause at the same time. That's what these two values are going to help us do. Time to wait. When the NPCs are first created, I want them to maybe move straight away, but they might not move until 360 steps have passed. So that's what all these do. In the step event, there's quite a lot. It's going to look very familiar. This is pretty much the movement code from the player. The extra thing really is if wait timer is greater than time to wait. So again, this is just after the pause is done, he's going to move if he can. This is exactly the same from the player. There's no change in that. Let me just make sure you can see the switch stuff first. And instead of setting the sprite directly, we're grabbing the sprite from an array. It just means that you don't have to worry about what type of NPC it is. As long as you set up the array, it's going to use the right sprite. If you change this to north instead of south, then you get some hilarious moonwalking effects. Happened to me when I was testing it. Okay, and then so if wait timer is greater than time to wait, so if it's not, if wait timer hasn't passed time to wait, then just increase it because the NPC is still waiting. And this, if can move equals true. So if can move equals false, which is this bit, it's the same as the player, apart from this here. I should probably change this as well, but we'll leave it for now. And this is extra as well, because we want the NPC to wait. And that is it for the step events. There is one more thing that we need to do. Inside the village, any NPC that you want to move around, they need this, unless your default was true. If it's set to false like mine is, you need to tell them that they want to walk around. The only guy that I don't have walking around right now is this guy, the innkeeper. There's nothing in his creation code at all. So if we now run the game, we should be able to see them move around. There we go. Obviously tweak the numbers if they're not moving quick enough, or there's something else you want to change, you can fiddle with the numbers, it should still work. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to display like an interaction sprite in front of the player wherever he moves around. We're not going to do that in the game. This is just going to be for testing purposes so that we know everything is working properly. We are going to use the interaction, but we are not going to show it, is what I mean by that. So if you go into the player object and the step event, we want this, well, after movement, we want this one, interaction. All it does is check for the players facing, and it sets the interaction X and interaction Y based on that. Once you've got that down, if you go into movement, which need to add these lines here, so that we're setting facing, we're going to add a new event. We're going to add a draw event for the player. This is what's going to draw the interaction square, and if we set this to false, it won't draw it. So for testing, we'll have it set to true, and for the actual gameplay, we're going to set this to false. So copy that, and inside here, we're going to set this to true, and you'll also need this as well to establish facing as a variable. And the sprite we're going to be using is this one here. It's just 16 by 16, a yellowish color, and an alpha of 150. So once you've got all that, run the game, and we should see a square in front of the player like this, and it should let us know what NPC, if anyone, we can talk to. So as long as you've got something like this, do the Spaz test again. As long as it works, then you are good to go. Okay, so now we're just going to dive into the text part of NPCs. This is quite a big part. There's quite a lot to it, but it's a major feature of the game, and it's going to allow you to do quite a few different things. It's also going to introduce you to a couple of clever tricks you can use in order to maybe give the player some money, have an NPC only say one thing once, and from then on he only says something else. And the way we're going to do that is with special characters, and we're going to feed the NPC's text through a for loop, and it's going to check for any special characters, and then those characters and the numbers after them is going to tell us what the text is going to do, or what the game is going to do. we're going to need to set this up first. So inside obj init in the create event again, minimize NPC sprites, and we're going to open this one, NPC text. So here are the special characters. So if you see a $, then the number after this is the amount of money given to the player. Let me make an amendment. This needs to be at the very end of the sentence. So whatever special characters you have, this needs to come after them. The reason that is because whatever numbers are left in the string, that's what's going to be added to the player's account. We're going to get rid of the other numbers first with the other special characters, but if we didn't do that, then we're going to give the player too much money. You'll understand more when you see the text stuff inside the player. So open square bracket, limitation on this is you can only have 0 to 9 after the open bracket. So if you recall before, I was saying how you could make an NPC just say one thing one time, and then from then on he's only going to say another thing. We're going to be using this stuff here, index start and index end. So say for example Bob's index start is 3, then when the player first speaks to him, all the player's ever going to see is this, and then he'll press OK, and then he'll get the next piece of text, and he'll never see these 3 lines again, because what this line does here on number 2 is open bracket number 3 will set his index start to 3, and close brackets 4 will set the index end to 4 for Bob. So this array here is what's going to be changed. If you can see, if you look at Bob's as well, when he first is spawned, the global array for Bob index start is going to be set to 0, which is this bit here, and the end is going to be set to 2, but it's going to get changed to 4 as soon as we hit this line, and the index start is going to be set to 3. So when we first speak to Bob, we'll say hi. We'll see, hi, my name is Bob. If you get to the last sentence, I'll give you a prize. The player is going to receive 100 coins, and then all we'll ever see from Bob again is these 2 lines. That's it. That's what this is for. Special characters and using like a for loop to check for them is a really cool way to do things. So just copy this down for now, and if you're not quite sure what's going on, hopefully as we progress you will do, especially if you see it working. It's worth copying this down as well. It's a good way to keep track of what things do. We're going to be using it twice. Okay, so we're going to sort out the talking bit now. It's going to be fairly lengthy, so let's just get it out of the way. If we go into the create event of obj player, then we're going to make sure we're going to want these 3 variables. Talking is false, and we forgot to set int x and int y. It's just a good practice to initialize it there. And in the step event, we've got this whole region here, talking. So just make sure you've got the structure down here, so ignore the regions for now. We just want if not disabled, if talking equals false. So if we're not talking to anyone and we press OK, we're going to search for an NPC in this region. Otherwise, if we are talking to someone, then we're going to allow the player to move away from the NPC or press cancel to stop the conversation. And we're also going to allow the player to go on to the next message, which is where the magic happens. So in this first region, we want to check the tile for someone to talk to because we're lonely. So collision rectangle is going to give us an ID of an object or no one. So if it comes back with an ID, then NPC is going to store the ID of the NPC in this variable. And we're going to set NPC talking to true. This is going to stop the NPC walking around. If you remember, if you go into the step event, this bit here, if talking is true, then none of this will work. We want to save the sprite of the NPC because when we talk to the NPC originally, we're going to make the NPC face us. That's where the directions come into it. And if the NPC was moving, it's going to mess him up. So we've got to save the sprite here. And we also want to set the player to talking so he doesn't give us any other problems. And we also want to find the starting point of the conversation. So this is basically what line of text we're going to start at. For most NPCs, it's going to be 0. But for people like Bob, where the start and end index can change, it might be 0, 3, 5, it just depends on how far the player's got in the conversation. And this variable called text is going to store the first line of text for the NPC. One thing I did forget to say is don't have a special character in the first line or the start line. Start index of the NPC. Because if you do, we're not going to check it because we're just going to display this text straight away without checking it. So don't do it. Otherwise, it's going to look funny. So once you've done this, minimize this region. We're done with this one. So in this bit here, if talking is true and we are not disabled, if the player wants to stop talking, he can press down, left, up or right, or cancel, and it'll stop the player talking, and it'll also tell the NPC to stop talking and give the NPC back their last sprite. That's all this does. And next message, like I said, this is where the magic happens. So if the player presses OK, we're going to want to go to the next message. So text counter is, if it gets to text end, it's just going to go back to text start, like I said. That's all this does. It just cycles through the available messages. I copied this from the create event of obj init just as a point of reference, just so it's easier to see. Text check. This is going to store everything that is in the text array. So all the special characters and numbers are going to be stored in this string. And we're going to use this for loop here to check letter by letter whether there's a special character. And then if there is, we're going to run the code for that character here. We're not going to do Innkeeper at the moment. We're just going to do the stuff for Bob, which is here. So when car is 1, say for example the string is hello, then when we do this bit here, sorry, not the Innkeeper, this bit here. So if string car at text to check car, that's going to return H, and when car is 2, this bit is going to return E, and when car is 3, it's going to return L, and so on and so on. So if the character in the string is the open brackets, then we want to check the number after the brackets, which is what this line is going to do, car plus 1. And then text start is going to equal the real of that number. So when we grab str is going to be a string, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be from 0 to 9, but it's still going to be a string. We can't use it as a number. But if we use the function real, we turn the string into an actual number. Be careful with this, because if str doesn't equal a number, if it's like a space or a letter, it's going to give you an error. So make sure you follow how I've done my special characters, otherwise this is going to give you problems. And now that we have converted the string into a number, we've stored it in text start, we're going to change the global array. So the only character this is going to affect is Bob, because no other character has open or close brackets in their text. So Bob's index start is going to get set to whatever that is, which is 3 in his text. And we also, what we need to do then is delete the special character and the number, because we don't actually want to show it on the screen, we just want to use it. So text to check equals string delete text to check car2. So that will delete the special character and the number. Once you've got that, it's pretty similar for this as well. The difference is we're changing it to text end, and we're changing the index end to that. And this is exactly the same. And if we want to add money, so if it's a $, we want to find the amount of money to add. So money string is going to use the function string digits. All this does, it just leaves a string with numbers, so anything else like letters or special characters will get removed from it. This is why I said to have the $sign at the very end of a string, because otherwise it will get rid of other things that we need. So money string is going to be numbers, and money to add is going to be the actual real version of that we can use. And we want to add money to add to the player's gold amount. That's what this does. And again, we want to remove all of the digits and special characters from text to check. We don't know how many numbers there are, because there might be 3, there might be 10. You know, you might be giving the player 1,000,000 gold coins. So we need to find the string length of money string. So if it's 100, there's going to be 3, and we want to add 1 to it, because we want to make sure we get rid of the special character as well, which is what this does. This just gets rid of the numbers and the special character. So once you've got that one down, after all that's done, we're going to say text equals text to check. So just make sure you've got this in this order. All the brackets are in the right place. Let's minimize the region. There you go. And we're going to have a new event called Draw GUI. So create that, and inside here, there's just a bit of coding to do, because we've done all the heavy work in the step event. So basically, as long as there's no battle going on and we're talking, then show the text. We want to have a black background, just something simple. And we're going to draw text. So this is the NPC text without the numbers and without the string. We're going to display that on the screen. So if we run the game, for now, all we're going to see is the villager text, because we haven't changed anyone's NPC ID to Bob's. But as long as that all works, we can do that now. Okay, so you've done the hard work. Let's get Bob working now. So if you remember, Bob's going to give us 100 gold coins. So we want to display how many gold coins the player has at the moment. We're just going to put this into the GUI event of the player. So it just displays the amount of gold the player has. And then we're going to pick an NPC in the village, so this guy, and we're going to give him this line here, NPC ID equals this village 1 Bob. And if we now run the game, speak to this guy. Hi, my name's Bob. We've got 100 gold coins. If you get to the last sentence, I'll give you a prize. And now we have 200. You'll never get that prize again. But here's one more line for good measure. So now you can see that it's only repeating these last 2 lines. If we exit the village, oh yeah, so I should have added an object to the world map, but at least we can move. If we go back and speak to Bob, he's still stuck on those 2 lines, and we still have 200 gold. So this is a good way to, you know, to give prizes out, that kind of thing. We're going to leave it there for today, guys. I did intend to include innkeepers and the other spells in this episode, but I don't want it to drag on for too long. I promise that I will get the episode, next one, up as soon as possible. If not Monday or Tuesday, I might even try for this weekend. It just depends if I get any time to myself. But apart from that, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now.